All right, Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Great Reality Book Study. So last week we talked about resentments, and we're gonna go a little further down the inventory thing tonight. But I want to start off with the story that I love this story. And it says an old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life, and he says a fight's going on inside you. He said, "Boy," to the boy, "it's a terrible fight. It's between two wolves. One is evil, who is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, self-pity, guilt. Oops. Self-pity and guilt." And he goes, and resentment, lies, dishonesty, hope. And the other is peace, joy, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, truth, faith. So the same fight is going on inside you, son, inside everyone. The boy thought and then looked up to his grandfather and he said, "Who wins?" And the old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." And someone's
Yeah.
unmuted here. I think. Yeah, just make sure everyone's muted, Holly. Um, so I mean, the thing is, you go to meetings today, and people say, "I'm going to talk about what what it was like," which is not. It says in the book, it's talk about what I was like, but they talk about alcohol. It's not about it's what it was like. It's what I was like, and you want to get into that, but I want to look at the part, see what I'm going to talk about what it was like, what happened, what likes now, and what were we like? So what are we supposed to share? Because it's not about it. We all know how to drink, and what I was like is I got resentments and I sought revenge and got mad and assaulted people, got angry and would punch a hole through the door or told people off just to feel better, gossiped, judged, you know, and was a liar, cheat, and a thief. That's what I was like. But that's not the legacy I want to have. That's not the legacy I want etched on my tombstone. You know, the the legacy that I strive for is best said by Buddhist writer Jack Kornfield. He says, "In the end, only three things matter most: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how deeply you let go." And that's the journey we all want to be on. That's the legacy I want. I mean, the way I look at it, I resent and harm people, so I need to learn love. I didn't need to learn it, I need to know it, experience it, and I had fear, so I needed to learn to live life a little, a little more gentle, that type of stuff. And, you know, and most of all, I held on to things. I needed to let go. That's why I needed the steps. And I harmed others and I needed a way to make it right. So we accomplished all those things by 4 through 9. So it's all about unlearning the way we want to live to understand life. And when we walk our first step into the light, we also take our first step out of darkness. And that's even more scarier. People are scared of the light, but it's like stepping out of darkness because it's a world we're comfortable with. You know, it's just, but we're in this world, a new world of understanding. Understanding simply means, you get what you see, you comprehend it, you know it. And maybe it's the first time in our life. And step 4 is about gaining this new understanding. You know, when we become spiritually awoke, we begin a new way of life and we learn what it means to be alive. And 4 and 5 is where that new life begins. Well, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And within those steps, we gain an awareness of what drives us, our emotions, our motives, our desires, and so forth. And we get a clear perception of our personality, identity, and most of all, character. Then that changes our thoughts and beliefs, and that new awareness allows us to truly understand who we are. So we discover, what I'm saying is we discover who we truly are. And we're not looking in the rearview mirror anymore. And yesterday disappointed, you know, you know, to cause us more pain. We look back so we can let go of the broken pieces and have peace. That's why recovery is about a new way of life. It's not this aura that people talk about where it's this painful process and you're gonna have to learn to live with these broken pieces and all this stuff, and this is the best it gets. No, it's better than it was. So until you become aware of what drives your thoughts and your emotions, you always be at the mercy of those thoughts and emotions, basically staying trapped in the bondage yourself. Um, we're on page 65, and this is loaded with causes and conditions and directions and promises and all sorts of things. And a condition is basically what I call a requirement to achieve something. Let's say I want to become a doctor. So the condition is I must go to medical school and get a license and all that stuff. And this paragraph is very similar. Um, there's a lot of really cool causes and conditions. It's very important conditions in this paragraph. And here's one. We went back to our lives. And the question I often hear people say is, how far back do we go? Because a lot of people come to the program and they'll say, oh, well, those resentments, I'm long past them. And I'll say, oh, let's go get those people and have a conversation. Oh, no, I don't want to be near them ever again. Well, then you're not past it. So it's how far back do you want to go? And I always say, like one of the guys will say, oh, the little kid and the little girl in the red dress that threw rocks at me. But that I don't remember her name. It was a long time ago. I said, well, why are you bringing it up? That's the thing. A lot of people will say, I've heard circuit speakers say this, that if they could take a part of the book, they would take out one back to our lives. And same thing, I hear people talk about step 5, and they say, I only need to hear 5 or 6 resentments, I'm good. Well, what about the ones you don't think are that bad? Or what about the patterns we want to see in somebody? I'd be dead if I did it that way. So how far back can you remember? Look, here's 2 more conditions. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. So we go back to our lives, thoroughness and honesty. So thoroughness basically means, to look over in a complete manner, careful, missing no details. Like a detective is thorough in their investigation, right? No stone unturned. And honesty is simply the awareness of where I'm at. Do I have resentment? Do I have fear? But most importantly, do I have pride? Do I have self-esteem? Where are those things, how are those affected? So that's 3 important conditions, that I just mentioned. And we mentioned one last week from page 64. And that condition is we put it on paper. Anything not put on paper is a conversation. So all 3 conditions are, again, put it on paper. These are conditions of inventory. Put it on paper, went back to our lives, thoroughness and honesty. And the reason so many people wind up in trouble is they're not thorough and they're not honest. I mean, I've heard hundreds of fifth steps, and if I had $100 for every time a guy came back and said I wasn't honest with you, I'd be a rich man. It happens all the time. Even people I know that I didn't sponsor. The the word thorough is it's a very important promise. In you think about, you hear that word a lot in this book. Rarely have I seen a person fail who thoroughly followed our path. He's telling us something. And he asks us to be fearless and thorough from the very start. He's telling us something. If you're painstaking about fish a bone, we'll be amazed when we're halfway through. Painstaking means thorough. He's telling us something. So we got to pay close, very close attention to that. And especially, like, even more close attention to this next part. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that the world and its people were often quite wrong. This is the part. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. That was the best we could do. That we could do. That was the best we could do in a day. That person's wrong. That person made me angry. And I always, that's one thing I always hear, and I always tell people this is, we want to say, "Oh, that person pissed me off and made me angry." Can a person make me angry? No, no one can make me angry. The only person that can make me angry is myself. You look at it that way, it makes a lot of sense. I'm the only person that can make me angry. There's a choice always to be made. And it kind of goes what's in the 12 and 12. You don't have to go there if you don't want to, but it's on page 90. It's a one sentence, and it says, "It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause that we call them to, there's something wrong with us." Say it again. It's a spiritual axiom. And that's a pretty deep saying right there. It's a truth. It's a spiritual truth that every time we are disturbed, there's something, no matter what the cause, no matter what the person did, there's something wrong with us. No matter if I took the worst end of it, there's something wrong with us. They're not saying sometimes. It says every time we're disturbed. It's like I said, no one can make me mad, right? That's what I was trying to get to. There's something wrong with me. It means no matter what the other person did, there's something wrong. You know, the only thing that could possibly be wrong with anyone in this universe is my thinking. The only thing that could be wrong with anyone I point fingers at in this entire universe is my thinking. So when we do 4 and 5, we're looking at a spiritual truth now. We're looking at a different direction. We look at these people and what they did to us, and we say, yes, they hurt me. Yes, they did bad things, but I played a part. So the key to enlightenment is seeing where we are to blame, not the part. People always want to say part, but the mistake we made, what the person did. You know, when we see what our mistake, it's the beauty of inventory. We see exactly where we play a part. You know, and that's when awakening begins. We're back on 66. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. That means stay in pain, right? Sometimes it was remorse, and what's another word for remorse is guilt. So sometimes it was guilt, and then we're sore at ourselves. Self-pity. So self-pity and guilt. Self-pity is guilt is you know my feelings towards I feel shameful of what I did. And then self-pity is resenting myself probably for the same, for that instance. But the more we fought and try to have our own way, the worse matters got. That's my experience. As in war, the victor only seemed to win, and Rome was a triumph for short-lived, 16 seconds, maybe. You know, you get in a fight and you knock some person out, and you jump up and down and cheer. What? How do you feel the next day? You know, when you win an argument, does it carry it through the next day? So last week we talked about resentment inventory. Tonight we're talking about harm inventory. I said this before. My way isn't the only way of doing this. It's not, I'm not here to change the way you do it. I just want you to be open-minded and maybe learn. Um, this book says if we were to live, we need to be free of anger. And when I heard that, I'm like, that's not possible. If I were to live, I need to be free of anger. How can you be free of anger? This is, and it says, and we cease buying anyone, even alcohol. Sanity has returned. I would be like, is that possible? And at night, we're asked to be kind, asked if we're kind and loving towards all. Not kind and loving towards all. It's like, that's impossible. You know, it directs us to pause when agitated and doubtful. So we don't harm another. We got to pause when we get angry. I don't know if I can do that. And there's the promise. Love and tolerance of others is our code. That means to love all, even if I disagree with them. No matter what their race, color, creed, or politics might be, or anything. Can I do that? My friend says, can I love the person that has a bumper sticker on a car that makes me mad? You know, but that's the thing. This is we're trying to get away from the anger. Like self-seeking will slip away. Self-seeking is selfishness in action. I'm so selfish. I want everything for myself. I don't care about what about other people. You know, I'm tending only to my needs, but lower not that of others. Self-seeking is pursuing those needs. Another word for self-seeking is harm. So harming others slips away. Means I start harming less and not at all. And if I do harm someone, I can clean it up real quick because I got to step 10. I can honestly tell you without doing harm inventory, none of this is possible. And people say there's no harm inventory in this book. And I don't want to get into points and stuff like that where I see it hinted, but it's like, I think, you know, it's not, it's not in there because it's obvious. So I guess the question is, you know, is not should we or shouldn't we do it? Is why wouldn't we want to do it for some of the stuff we've done? You know, how much further do you want to go and how free do you want to be? So to look at harms, let's go to page 18, just to give us a little background. You know, we've gone over this before in a different way. It's just a reminder. You remember, I think it's on 77 or something like that. It says, we have a list of the people we've harmed. We made it when we took inventory. So that's telling me that we made a list of harm somewhere, not just, you know, so when we took inventory, we did it. So there's a harmless there. But look at this. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe is an illness, involves those about us in no way other human sicknesses can. If a person has cancer, I'll feel sorry for him. No one's angry or hurt. You know, people will not go to someone with cancer or some disease and say, knock this stuff off. You know, no, we're concerned. We have empathy, compassion for them. We're sad. But not so with the alcoholic illness. For with it goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. So when something's annihilated, it's killed or destroyed, demolished in large numbers, annihilation. I say it, but like when we bombed Hiroshima, we annihilated it. Tons of people died, you know, and you think about, we annihilated lives, you know, and what is the value of your life today? I mean, maybe it's your kids, your spouse, your family, your job, recovery, of course. You know, it's so easy to destroy those things by one mess up. You know, just of those people that you consider, you know, your spouse and your family and all that. Think of what your obsession did to them. Just your obsession. Take away your anger, take away your frustration, and the stupid things you said. Just your obsession of going and spending the rest of the money, taking food off the table, ignoring them, disappearing for a while, being non-absent, not showing up when you're supposed to in your visitation day for your kids, or not showing up at all. It's a pretty good indicator we need to do harm inventory. Look what it says next, engulfs. It means consumes, right? Think of fire, how much it consumes something. It says it engulfs all lives it touch to suffer. So another good indication when you do harm inventory. Our harms go from one life to the next. And if you said something in a harmful thing in front of someone, physically or mental or emotionally, in front of 10 other people, and they go, oh, well, you harmed all them too. You know, and newcomers will come in here and say, the only person I ever harmed is myself. Really? How? You know, this is another excuses, you know, and this is where excuses end. Look what it says next. It brings misunderstanding and fierce resentment. Fierce, another word for fierce is violent. So violent resentment. When you put violent in the resentment, that means you took action and hurt someone, you know, physically, right? It's a harm, right? I get a resentment towards someone and I punch them in the mouth because this and that, and it's a harm. It's another good indication we do harm inventory. Financial insecurity. One of the biggest driving forces of resentment, harm, and fear is my mind is wrapped in my material security, especially when it starts in fear. Oh my God, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to do this? And back in the day, we found pretty crazy means to get money, stealing and everything else. It's, we can get very discontented, very short, and very angry. The mindset, that's a harmful mindset, which means if I'm need my money somehow back in the day, I was dishonest, I lied. It's another good indication to harm inventory. We'll get more into that. So all these are indicators of why we need to do harm inventory. Here's some more. Disgusted friends and employers. I mean, the people that disapproved what I did. Did your friends disapprove of your actions leading to resentments before or after you harmed them? We ever dishonest with them? Again, indicator I need to do inventory. Warped lives of blameless children. Perhaps you're the product of an alcoholic home, and what you were one of the blameless children. You say, "I'll never do it to my kid." When your mom or your dad disappeared for 3 days straight doing drugs, I'll never do it to my kids. Or people that we got raised by someone else, and all we heard a little bit about our parents from our grandmothers, and I'll never do that. I'll never treat my kids like that. I'll never leave my kids at home. And then we wind up doing the same thing. And what disgusts me is when alcoholics who don't do the steps, I'm going to say, act like they're the victim, especially newcomers that come in, they'll do that. And I don't blame a newcomer for being that because they don't know better. But people that they got claimed time and all this stuff and they act like they're the innocent victims. Our children are the innocent victims. I mean, some of us harmed our children or family so bad it took years for them to accept our meds. Good indication we do harm inventory. Sad wives. How many second, third chances, fifth chances do they give us? We cheated, we lied, we deceived, we're dishonest, broken trust, the physical harms, the mental harms. But we say we never harmed anyone, or I'm not making amends. Parents. Remember the look on your parents' face, your mom's face, your dad's face when you got in trouble. The look of disgust. Even more is robbing them of their emotional security when they're up all night wondering if you're alive or dead. I just had a friend I've known for years, and he went and made amends to his dad. He's got 3 years of recovery. He finally found his real dad, or he known his dad, but he made amends to him, and his dad goes, "I thought you died a long time ago." It's just a crazy world. But one of the greatest gifts from recovery is the opportunity to make those amends. So if anyone can increase the list, I'm not going to increase the list because we'll be here all night. But we hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be afflicted. There are many. Doesn't say a few. This paragraph reminds me of the destruction I caused. And the cool thing about that paragraph, each one you can relate to yourself. Every one of us is a different relationship with that. And it's telling me I have some rebuilding to do. So if you have a 12 and 12, they talk a little about harms on page 80. And I've read this before, but it's just a good description of harms on page 80, 12 and 12. And says, you might ask ourselves what we mean when we say we have harmed other people. What kind of harms do people do to one another anyways? A lot of people, hear something like that and they never sat back and just took it all in. Oh my God. To define the word harm in a practical way, we might call it a result of instincts and collision. We talk about that, instincts and collision. Not everybody we deal with is spiritually awoke or spiritually sick, and they have instincts. We have misdirect instincts. Two rams button heads. And what happens? It causes physical mental and emotional or spiritual damage to people. Damage. It means a dent. Think of like a damaged car, like a dent. Cause a dent in that person. Physical, mental, or emotional damage. Right? If our tempers are constantly bad, we arouse anger in others. So I'm pressing buttons. If we lie or cheat, we deprive others. So I'm pressing buttons is a harm. If we lie or cheat, we deprive others not only of their worldly goods, but their emotional security and peace of mind. I've mentioned that. Robbing people of emotional security. We really issue them an invitation to become contentious and vengeful. And then I'm going to blame the other person because they came after me, which I started. It says on page 62, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. And I blame them. If our sex conduct is selfish, we may excite jealousy, misery, and a strong desire to retaliate in kind. Retaliation. So harms, they cause, as you see, cause physical, emotional, spiritual damage to people. But they can be deliberately or not, and not deliberately afflicted. And that's why it's important to do harm inventory, because if we're just saying circling the resentments where we took action, we're going to miss something, and I'm going to explain why. Because there's not always resentments connected to harms, right? Not always. So if it's deliberate, it's an act of revenge, like resentment, blame, and revenge. Not deliberate means, let's say I do a hit and run because I'm drunk. I didn't, plan. I didn't seek that person out. Someone got caught in my path of destruction, caught in the crossfire. Maybe we robbed someone, maybe, or stole something from someone in a house, or, maybe maybe that person is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They got injured. Like maybe I have a sponsee that killed someone in a DUI accident, and years ago. That's harms, but that's the not deliberate. I'm not pointing this person out and you know running them over. But the main difference between harm and resentment, we know that harm is a thought. I'm sorry, resentment's a thought. Harm's an action. And the difference is with resentment, my instincts are hurt or threatened. My pride feels, it's the buttons are being pressed on my pride. My emotional security is feeling weird. My pocketbook's feeling weird, you know. And when I'm harm another, I'm trying to satisfy those. I'm trying to feel those instincts better. Especially my pride. I'm going to tell that person off. Look what they did in front of me. So resentments are either stay in our mind, or I'm going to take action to satisfy them. And the only way we knew to get past resentments for a long time was to harm another person. Tell that person off. I had a person tell me one time, well, telling a person off isn't a harm. Of course it is. Right? But I did that, so I didn't want it in my mind anymore. I didn't plan it that way. That's just what happened. And another difference is resentments are selfish. And I said this a minute ago, harms are self-seeking. They stay to me long enough, I'm going to become self-seeking. But the biggest difference, the big difference between resentments and harm, resentments we fight. We fight others, and we fight the fact that we're innocent. We blame other people. It's their fault. But when we harm someone, we know who's to blame. We know we're at fault. And we wind up with guilt. Guilt, we already turn the blame on us. It's one of the main reasons we do harm inventory. The biggest reason. I want to get past guilt. The reason I make amends, get past guilt. I get guys all the time saying, I made these amends, but I still feel guilty over my past because you haven't gone far enough. I just took over a guy, took him to the steps, did his first harm inventory. He's been sober 11 years, got him to more thorough on his amends, went back to look at it. And he finally says he felt free. Nothing I did, it's just more thorough. But it's because guilt is such a powerful emotion. That shame you carry. like, what do they call it? Eating me up inside, right? So it's the remorse, the regret, self-loathing, low self-esteem, self-pity, misery, depression. We mentioned all that stuff already a little bit. But it convinces me there's nothing to do about it. Guilt will tell me there's nothing you can do about this. It's too late. Too much time has passed. Matter of fact, I've heard people in the program say that to people. I had a guy in a meeting a few years back say, there's nothing you can do about those old harms you did. Just sort of live with it. I'm like, what program is this guy in? Right? It's not too late. Not too much time has passed. There's not too much damage that can't be fixed. Right? That's the truth. So guilt's not it's not necessarily a response to my past actions. It's a present moment restriction. It's a present moment roadblock. That's the way to look at it. Where do we connect to God? Yeah, do I connect to God right now and yesterday? No, I connect to God in the now and the present. I cannot connect to God in the present if my mind's stuck in the past. And no amount of guilt can ever undo the past. So guilt and resentment are extremely similar in the fact they both block us off from God. So what's the outcome? There's one or two outcomes of guilt. One, you can drown in it. I don't think you truly drown. It's like that feeling you're drowning, that panic, until you feel useless, or you can push yourself to go fix it, right? You can push yourself to go fix it. So to achieve freedom, we got to move past guilt. We must inventory our harms, discuss them, ask God to remove it in 6, and make amends. Make amends for real. Like not just the easy amends that we make to certain family members that we see all the time. We're talking the hard ones, the ones that scare you. So it can clear away that shame and the self-blame and fear and misery and all that, especially depression. I've personally known over a dozen people who committed suicide while sober in this program. Not one of those people was doing the steps. People I cared about. And they all have one thing in common. They all carried the burdens of their past. And my grandpa used to say only 2 things keep a person from suicide: the steps or alcohol. It's pretty scary. It takes action to be free. So you see why it's a good idea to do this harm inventory. So I'm going to put up a slide really quick of what the harm inventory sheet looks like, and it looks pretty much identical to the resentment one, right? So just like the resentment inventory, if we stopped right here, it's just a confession. It's just a confession. This third column tells me my story. It's all about me. Third column changes everything because it goes deeper. If my desires for personal relationships is too great, it will cause me to hurt another human being. If I live in this pride, what does pride bring? Jealousy or high self-esteem. I might be rude, patronizing, condescending, arrogant, ego. And low self-esteem might cause me to, might cause me to overprove myself, wear a mask and act like someone I'm not. And emotional security can cause rage. Think about it. If you punch someone in the face because they said something to you, or yell at them, or say something, your emotional security has produced rage. You're no longer emotionally secure. If I need something, need something now, I'm low on money or whatever, my maternal instincts will drive me to get it at all costs. Right? The pocketbook. Sex may cause me to be dishonest. So let's do a harm example. We saw in 65, Mr. Brown's attention to my wife and all that stuff, all this good Mr. Brown stuff. So how would Mr. Brown be inventoried in resentment? Let's say the the result is he knocked on Mr. Brown's door the next day and broke his nose. So I'd write, Mr. Brown broke his nose. Now that's just a confession. Did it affect my personal relations with Brown? Oh yeah, I just harmed him. Did it, what was my self-esteem like at the time? High. You know, now it's the difference here is sometimes I focus on how they felt at the time, and sometimes I focus on what how I was asking them, well, what do you feel like now with it? And it's usually it's high when I did it and low now because of the guilt. Pride, yep. Um, Emotional security, um, social ambitions and security ambitions. And I can't be around him anymore. And maybe he's one of my bosses, and now I'm not gonna get that, raise. Dishonest? No, I'm not dishonest about self-seeking. I was frightened. That's pretty much it. I'll do one of my own. A simple one. Took money off took money out of my mom's actually, I got a better one than that. Took my dad's casino money. They went on a trip, and my dad walks in. I was like 19 or 20. I was young, maybe 22. So I snuck way back in their house, but I was like, they came in, and my dad goes, "Oh, this house is certainly clean." But then he goes, my mom's like kind of happy, and my dad goes, "Where the F is my casino money? Is all the quarters?" And I took it to go get some stuff, and it was about $400 in quarters. I did worse stuff than that as far as money wise with my parents, but that was the one where I saw my dad's face and how angry he was because I meant to put it back. So resentment, the harm, dad took his casino money, affected my personal relations. And the reason I have the guilt towards it is because it was never the same with us after that. That was like one of the breaking points. Low self-esteem affected my pride because the way now he doesn't feel good about me anymore. Emotional security, yep. Material, not going to trust me ever again. Social security, dishonest, yes. Self-seeking, frightened. So it's like my pride got affected because all I wanted to do was make that man believe in me. And I knew what I was doing was wrong, but when you look in their eyes and you go, man, what did I do? Because we're alcoholics and addicts. We don't have we don't have the right kind of conscience yet, right? So let's just look at this last column here. So if you go back to 67, I'm not going to read the paragraph, but it asks us to put out of our minds what the person had done. That means the cause. So I'm putting out of the minds what I did, right? I'm disregarding that I even harmed my dad. I'm looking at what drove me to it or where it kept me, you know. And I look at there through the instincts. And by disregarding it leaves me only one part to look at, that third column. I see how selfish I was by by seeing what instincts were affected, becoming more aware of them, like in step 10, by going deeper on these. I can see how pride led to selfishness and how self-esteem makes it all about me. And how low self-esteem caused me fear or to isolate. It's living life on, it shows me what living life on self-will and right to show ourselves is all about. And that leads to being dishonest. You know, the fourth column is the end result. Sorry, is the end result of living on instincts. So I'm gonna leave this open because I'm gonna be on in a second again. So when gathering, harms, you first write down the ones that I always have sponsees write down the ones that bother them the most. Which sponsee, which harms, really make you tear your heart up? Which ones do you regret? Which ones do you wish never happened? And boom, 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 they write down like 7 or 8 of them, maybe more. After that, I ask them to let's look at your resentment sheet. And they go, okay. And I ask them, which resentments did you act upon? And they start looking now. Oh, here's one. I resented my brother for whatever it was. And did you react to that? A bunch of times. So like my brother, he did something to me. I don't remember what it was. It was a big resentment, and I just came out. He told on me. You know, not just like tattling. I'm talking like telling my parents what I was doing, and I harmed him physically, mentally. But there's about 8 harms within 6 weeks. So I had to move. So I looked at that resentment and I went, oh, I acted upon that. I'm going to move that. I'm going to look at that harms. I'm going to inventory all those harms I did. So if I'm just looking at that and I just circled that one on a resentment sheet and said, I harmed him, how am I going to get past the guilt of all the harms I did? I got to look at each one. So, you can also do the harms in reverse. You can look at the harms and ask yourself, what caused the harm? And you go resentment. And most of them are in resentment sheets, but some may not. And you move into resentments. But, you know, I created this primer sheet and it's for harms. And it's a fishing exercise. It's not inventory, it's fishing for inventory. And this is for those hard-headed sponsors who believe the only person they are harmed themselves. So what I do is you have the definition of dishonesty: lied, cheated, deceived, stole. That's dishonesty, right? So lying means to deliberately speak, you know, fabricate the truth, right? Cheating means could be unethical or just all, things I did to get what I want. And, people cheat in competitive situations. It's not just cheating sexually. It's we might cheat someone in a sports game or cards, gambling. You can cheat in a test. You know, you can cheat any institution out of money. Like I said, you can be unfaithful to someone. Deceiving means to mislead a person to gain personal advantage by hustle, right? Stealing, taking another person's property with or without permission. You know, so I might have intention of returning it, but I don't. And I always thought stealing was like, okay, I took the candy bar from the store, I stole from someone, I took behind their back. And so I was told by my grant sponsor, if you take money off your mom's dresser, that's stealing. If you borrow money from your mother and didn't return it, that's stealing. There's no difference. And that's when people go, oh my God, I really was a thief. Because some people say, I never stole anything from anybody. But then they realize that they borrowed money from people and went against their word. That's stealing, right? You point out to them, their eyes open up. So if any of these, list the people you lied to that bother you the most. List the people you cheated, deceived, stealing. Now, if any of these wind up being in the sexual arena, you put them on your sex conduct review, right? You know, that's the thing. That's the thing. And I mean, how many times do we do things and say, why did I do that? Something else drives us. And some of you have seen me do this before. This is the picture of the archer. Now, notice this guy he's ready to fire. He's focused, right? And surrounding this archer is a world full of different people all around him, people he resents, right? So the bow right here represents the mind, selfish, insanity. The arrow represents physical harm. That's the arrow right there, physical harm. What happened is this archer gets the resentment. He pulls back on the bow, just like he's doing there. He's pulling back on his mind, right? Everywhere he goes, that bow is just waiting to fire off. He's ready to fire it. He's center point. He's angry. He's very mad. Lets it fly. Next one. Boom, 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 boom. Again and again and again. Harm, harm, harm. But the question is, what's really pulling the bow? It's not the mind part. See, it's the archer. The archer represents misdirected instincts. It's just because this archer's, driven by pride, by self-esteem, by personal relations, emotional security, material security, sex. And the mind, the mind gets, says to the guy, go prove your point. She's wrong, he's wrong. Yell at them, be right. Stand up for yourself. That's what our instinct tells us to do. Sometimes blindly, we just turn around and do it automatically. But just like the archer, we point outside ourselves to fix the problem. This archer is pointing outside himself to fix the problem. I never once paused and said, it's my pride, it's my sexual relations. I didn't know any better. I didn't even know what those words meant. I knew two words, blame and revenge. I don't think I even knew those words. It was just do it, act on it. So what needs to happen? The spirit needs to become the archer, right? And when that happens, instead of a place of anger, what do we respond with? Love. And that ability to stop conflict with love, that's the most powerful thing you ever do. Meaning, when we become aware of instincts, we put down the bow. We finally put down the bow. And when we put down the bow, so we're putting down the arrow with it, right? 4 through 9 changes the way we talk to people. I'm going to close this off. I mean, it changes the way we talk to people. So one thing we learn, because what does it tell us to do in step 11? We pause when agitated and doubtful, right? The greatest gift we discover is the pause button. And when we can pause, we can think what we say rather than saying what we think. We always want to say what we think, our foot in our mouth. But then we stop trying to be right all the time or get the last word in. My sponsor says, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? I started to say again, he goes, do you want to be, he kept asking like 3 times. Finally, I said, I want to be free. You know, words are important, but what's sacred is silence. That's the thing, saying nothing. Not every time, but most of the time. But think what you say, you know. But before you open your mouth and say harmful things, 3 questions I like to ask myself. Are my words true? Are my words kind? And are they necessary? Are my words true? Are they kind? And are they necessary? Very important. Let's go back to the bottom of 65. It says, we turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. So a key is what? How do you, what do we use a key for? To get in our house, right? It's a means to access, to start my car. It's a means to access to make it go. Step 4 is a key to the future. My question is, if I don't do step 4, does that mean I have no future? I can say if you are a real alcoholic, a real addict, it's your best chance for long-term recovery, being a illness, and mental survival, being able to survive mentally. It's your best chance. But still, I mean, again, there's those in those rooms, old timers, they call it the dreaded 4th step. And it's probably they say that because in their mind, it rehashed events of disturbing things they did not, you know, they did to those they love. Maybe it was secrets that they only knew about or names that they didn't want to forget about, things they want to keep hidden, locked away. Maybe it's felt that way too. It doesn't seem like, when I mention it that way, it doesn't seem like key to the future, does it? Secrets and all that, but they are. The only way to know it's the key to the future is to reach inside, until you do so, you do the work. It's just a theory. That's what they say. Alcoholism is the only prison where the key's inside of us, right? It says we're prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. So if I look at something from an entirely different angle, what that means is we're looking at it from a different point of view. And I see things from a different point of view, it changes the way I see it and perceive it. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Things become different. And here's what happens from a different angle. We begin to see the world and its people really dominate us. That's a new way of thinking right there. So we begin to see that, we are the creator of our problems. We are the maker of us. And that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancy or real, had power to actually kill. Fancy is derivative from the word fantasy. It's something that's imaginary, not reality. Means meaning the wrongs others did, were they real or imaginary? Right? Like Mr. Brown. Maybe he waved across the room to someone else, and I thought he was waving my wife, and who knows? Fancy or real? But the best question is, how could we escape? I mean, that's what we thought for years. We prayed to escape or be rescued. How can I escape this madness that's killing me? The easy way out to get loaded, right? We saw the resentments must be mastered, but how? We cannot wish them away more than alcohol. And I'm not knocking page 552 of the book. If you do that, great. But if I have a resentment and I'm blocking off from the spirit, how can I truly pray? If I can't wish them away, how can I pray them away? I need to go make amends. I need to change, what I've done. We need to unlearn the way we lived. This was our course. We realized the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. That's a spiritual malady, inability to connect to the spirit within, blocked from God. That's spiritual sickness. So they're saying that not only are we sick, they're sick too. Though we didn't like their symptoms, to call them two, what they did to us, right? And the way they disturbed us, that's the instincts, call them three, right? The way they disturbed us, it's always instincts. They, like ourselves, are sick too. They, like ourselves, are self-centered too. They, like ourselves, have pride. Instincts in collision. We asked ourselves, we prayed, this is a prayer. We prayed God to help us show them the same tolerance and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend, like we mentioned earlier. You don't get mad at someone that's got cancer. We cheerfully grant a sick friend. We want the patience like we have them. When a person's offended, we say to ourselves, this is the anger prayer right here. This man is sick. How can I be helpful to him? That's quite different. Not, what should I say to him? This man is sick. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from be angry, and thy will be done. And here's the different way, the new way. We avoid retaliation argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will help us show to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. There's if a person, we wouldn't treat sick people that way. If my uncle has dementia and when he forgets my name, I don't get angry at him. I got a friend doing chemo. If he has to cancel an appointment, I don't get angry at him. I treat them with compassion. We must do the same. We must have the same pity and patience towards all, especially those who are enemies or are spiritually sick. We all be confronted by people who are cruel or treat us wrongly. It's going to happen. What if we looked at those people with that same compassion I just talked about? If a person is rude, can you have compassion towards them? According to what we saw above, if you see them as spiritually sick. The only way you know spiritual sickness is by doing this process. But if we're not aware they're spiritually sick, we can't see them. It doesn't stand out like a broken bone. There's no medical diagnosis. Our response to them is what our instincts will tell us to do. Always harm them, be rude. How can I have compassion for someone who is spiritually sick? It's a change in mindset through inventory, discussing another. From that's where we come into awareness of our misdirected instincts and let God remove it, like I said. When we become aware we're spiritually, of spiritual sickness in ourselves, we react to those who are spiritually sick with compassion. The best way to experience compassion is relating with what that person's going through, the deep awareness of instincts. You see it in their eyes. You see it in their eyes. You might have empathy towards someone like an alcoholic, but if you look at the alcoholic's eyes when they're in pain, you get empathy because you've gone through that. That's where we're at with that. I'm gonna close with one of my favorite stories. So this guy is at his grandma's house having coffee. He goes every day for coffee, and he's there to receive her words of wisdom. And one morning, he's really pissed off and he's really angry and frightened and fear, maybe some guilt, right? Over something he said. He's all over the place, and she soon realizes that he's all over the place, and her words of wisdom are not going to work. So she gives a different approach to give to show an example, right? And she puts 3 pots of water on the stove, and the first one she puts carrots into the first one. The next one egg, and the third pot ground coffee beans, and they come to a boil. She puts the carrots in a bowl, the egg into another bowl, and she filters the ground coffee beans into a cup, so it's liquid. And she says, "Look, if you look closely, the carrots went in hard and strong, but when faced with the obstacle of boiling water, they came soft and weak. The egg went in soft inside, but when faced with the obstacle of boiling water, became hard inside. But the ground coffee beans, when faced with the obstacle of the boiling water, changed the water itself." So the moral here is, when faced with an obstacle, such as anger, how do you respond? Are you walk in, headstrong, hard and strong, but anger makes you soft and weak? Or are you soft inside, but anger makes you hard-hearted? Or or when faced with the obstacle of anger, do you have the strength within to overtake and change everything about it? Instead of it altering you, you alter it. Meaning, just like the coffee changed the water, where it changed the water itself, it will change the situation, right? So when you face with the obstacle of anger, do you have the strength within to overtake and change everything about it? Instead of with step 4, we begin the transition of changing the obstacle itself, instead rather than it changing you. So the thing is we need to let inventory bring us closer to this personal freedom. So we want our heart to become pure, so we can see that. And what happens in inventory, we look back. We may not look at these people that were our enemies as great people or anything like that, but we can also look at them as teachers, because all my enemies and people I harmed, they taught me something about myself, you know. And what it did was it demolished my limitations and made my world way bigger, you know. And I think by limiting anger and action with anger, we can do anything. Next week, we will look at not harm inventory, fear inventory. I'm going to stop the recording.